Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. Today we're talking about what is inarguably the biggest gaming news in a long time that one of us doesn't quite believe in as strongly, and that is, of course, the official acquisition of Bethesda by Microsoft. Now, let's lay some ground rules here.
Good.
That means, for those following along at home, that Microsoft owns fucking Bethesda. What they actually did is they bought ZeniMax, which is the parent company of Bethesda. Bethesda is still going to be publishing their games, but they're part of the Xbox Studios apparatus. All of Bethesda's games will come to Game Pass day one, moving forward, and their back catalog will be on Game Pass. I don't know when, but I'm assuming soon.
At some point, yeah.
This comes on the eve of Series S and Series X pre-orders that go open tomorrow.
Sure.
So this is generally, a very big piece of news. Now, Tucker, I'd like to get your impressions of this news this morning.
Well, you see, I tweeted out a picture this morning.
You did tweet out a picture. It made me laugh. I also texted you afterwards and said that it was a stupid tweet.
Yeah,
but it was very funny.
Let me pull this up. All right, you see, this is me. This is me this morning. I haven't even. Look, you see my covers right there. I'm not even out of bed yet. I haven't even wiped the sleep from my pretty little eyes.
Naturally.
And I don't know, man. I honestly don't know what to say about this. It just the acquisition of Bethesda makes sense to me. That's the path that Microsoft seems that they were going on. They've been buying a lot of studios. Bethesda's a big deal, and Microsoft acquiring bigger and bigger studios, just that's pretty logical. And I don't think it'll have too much of an impact. It's cool that they're coming to Game Pass, but it's definitely cool. But everyone like pooping their diapers and slinging the shit around like fucking monkeys this morning on Twitter. I was sleeping in my bed. I was that meme where Shaq is I sleep. That's me.
I think I think the piece of the puzzle you're missing is that they bought a publisher. They've bought Obsidian and they've bought is it Ninja Theory? Yeah, Ninja Theory. They've bought teams like that. Those are studio acquisitions. This is a fucking publisher acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
This is an enormous deal because this means you've got actual Bethesda Softworks, you've got Arcane, you've got Machine Games, you've got you got id, the team that makes Shinji Mikami's team that makes fucking Evil Within, Tango Gameworks, Softworks, something like that. You get a lot of teams, a lot of IP. You get a shit ton of value out of this.
Yeah, of course.
And I think you are right and wrong in the sense that I don't think this is going to materially affect consumers in a major way. The only way this would have been a bigger deal is if Microsoft was playing the Sony game and they locked these games down to their ecosystem exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
If they had done that, this literally would have been probably the biggest piece of gaming news in legitimate years.
Yeah.
As it stands, it still is, because this is a humongous play for Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to recontextualize what Xbox is doing. Xbox is about this generation providing value, providing services. And getting Bethesda, who is widely considered, they've missed a little bit recently, but widely considered outside of their recent misses to be one of the most compelling Western game publishers, having that entire catalog of IP for free, essentially in Game Pass.
Yeah.
A service that is so cheap and bundled into all access, bundled into so many different facets of the Xbox experience that it's very rare that you're not going to have that service. This is an enormous deal. This is an enormous get. This provides an incredible amount of value, especially consider this in light with the fact that EA Play is now being wrapped into Xbox Game Pass, and the amount of value you have, even disregarding the fact that you're going to get games like Starfield if they ever fucking release day one in Game Pass, just getting that back catalog is enormous. This is an enormous play.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm not familiar enough with the Xbox version of Game Pass's library. I honestly, if you had told me that Fallout 4, that Skyrim, that those games are on there, I would have believed you. I don't have an Xbox to know that from, so I wouldn't know. But a lot of these games, they're games that make sense to have on Game Pass, especially some of the older ones. But having the big new ones coming out day and date on Game Pass, I do think is personally for me the biggest influence of this acquisition, and definitely the thing I'm most excited about. Bethesda is a studio or a publisher, I guess, that a set of studios that I do like a lot. I liked Doom. I liked Dishonored. I like Skyrim. I haven't played a lot of their games, to be completely honest, but the ones that I have played, I've enjoyed. And I'm interested to see where they're going because one of my most excited or anticipated upcoming games is Deathloop, as we've discussed in our
Mm.
PS5 discussion card in the corner. And I don't know. This definitely, I think it needs some time to set in for me. I think that's the thing. Is I'm so used to waking up and hearing that Microsoft has bought another game team that I'm like, oh, okay. I woke up this morning and it just happened to be Bethesda. But I do think that this is probably larger than I'm initially letting on. So, who knows? Maybe in a week I'll come back and just scream into my microphone for 10 minutes and that'll be my moment of realization.
Well, I think you're just missing the scope of what Bethesda is as an acquisition.
Mhm.
And I think it's also compounded with the fact that, like I was saying earlier, Microsoft is an overarching brand that's interested in ubiquity with their software. So this is not going to mean that they're going to lock out games like Starfield from PS5. Of course, that's not confirmed, but you have to look at the way things are moving, like Wasteland 3, Cuphead, Ori, Minecraft Dungeons, all of their
Minecraft,
Minecraft, all of
Hellblade.
these things. Sure. Well, those came out prior, but I
Oh,
was
sure,
talking
yeah,
about the
yeah,
ones that have come out since those cities have been acquired. They're interested in spreading that around,
yeah,
which I think is really compelling. And I think that's really important to remember when factoring this in. So a game like Deathloop and Tokyo Ghostwire, those are both timed PS5 exclusives. And everything looks to be pointing to those staying that way. But then I'm assuming that exclusivity window is going to end. Those are going to be on Game Pass right away.
yeah,
Um, so I think that to the sense of it not feeling as huge, part of that has to do with the fact that this probably is not going to be materially huge for people outside of that ecosystem.
yeah,
But in that ecosystem, right, that's enormous because if you're thinking about buying a PS5, a lot of those games are foregone conclusions for you. You're going to want to play those big Bethesda titles. But we're looking at $70 per title there, you know?
yeah,
So if you're interested in playing Wolfenstein 3 when that comes out, whatever it's going to make next, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, um, Tango's games, all of the stuff in the ether right now, that is a lot that you're going to be putting down. And to get all of that for free is a humongous get for
yeah.
the Xbox ecosystem.
That's true. And I think another aspect of my somewhat middling interest in this is the fact that I'm not invested in the Xbox ecosystem. And while the possibility is that these games will come to Xbox Game Pass for PC, which I do have, and I'll have access to them, a lot of them are games that I likely won't get at launch, or that I can get, or the older games I can get or already do have for incredibly cheap on Steam. Because the access to these games on Steam, which is where I would play them, I would play these games on PC. Kind of negates their additions to Game Pass for me, because these games go on sale for pocket change pennies and dust in a can on Steam every other week. So hopefully this means that uh, Xbox and Bethesda can notice that their IP and their series do actually have more holding power, and they don't necessarily need to go on sale and can be shown as the big games that they are. But who knows? It's definitely an up and down for me because I can't really tell exactly where I'm going to fit in the future when it comes to Bethesda's games.
Well, I think you're kind of discounting the value that these games have. They only go as cheap as they are because Western and even Japanese game development, those games outside of Nintendo, outside of some first-party efforts, a lot of stuff just goes cheap. And these are older games, you got to keep in mind, but their resonance has not faded at all.
Mhm.
And you consider, sure, you can get a game like Fallout 4 for maybe $10 on a Steam sale, but for $15 a month, you're getting Game Pass that has all these games and Fallout 4 and fucking 15 other Bethesda games on
Yeah,
top of everything Xbox first party, on top of all these amazing indie games, on top of all of this.
yeah,
The point is that this just adds another tier of value with a scope and scale of experience that you wouldn't traditionally think from Game Pass. Because, like, CD Projekt has said that Cyberpunk will not be on Game Pass day one. They came out and said that a while ago because there's rumors about it. But a lot of Bethesda titles are on that tier. They just are.
hmm,
These are huge gets. And then you wrap in EA Play, you wrap in everything, and all of a sudden, I am 100% pre-ordering a Series S tomorrow. because that is a value that pays for itself over and over again.
Yeah. And we've had this conversation quite a few times about how we both very much enjoy Xbox Game Pass, and we do think that it's an incredible value. And there are people who somehow disagree with that. And I've had these conversations on Twitter a couple of times where someone's like, "Oh, Game Pass, seems cool, but it really is not as big of a deal as people let on." But that's just factually untrue. If you pay $10 a month just for Xbox Game Pass for PC, or 15 for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which does include online now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
includes
Xbox Live
and
Gold is bundled, and
and xCloud.
xCloud, yeah. But if you play one game a month from any of the Xbox studios, indies, Bethesda, or EA, you're already saving money just by playing your games on Game Pass. And this expanding value of Game Pass is very exciting, but it almost has me worried for the future of Game Pass and sustainability. I know Microsoft is a gigantic corporation and they can keep their funds backing up these games regardless, but if it keeps on growing, I'm not sure how many of these studios are gonna want their games on Game Pass if it really isn't, because games do get lost in the shuffle. It's just true. The more games that get added to a Netflix style service, the less games are going to feel impactful because you're getting everything for free. And there's very low chance that you're going to go back and play Fallout 3 if all of these games are also being added.
I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's
I
important
can say
to
it's true as someone who has Xbox Game Pass and has downloaded these games, but then I'm realizing, hey, there's so many games to play that these free ones I can access at any point. I'd rather play the ones that are new coming out and that I'm paying for. When something is free, it puts it in the back of your mind as, oh, it's going to be there for a while. I'll just put it off. That's happened to me with Netflix. That happened to me with my comic services that I pay for. When you purchase something with your own money separate from a service, you're more likely to engage with it.
I mean, I agree with that. I feel that as someone who pays for DC Universe and Comixology Unlimited, and most months forget that I do.
Yeah.
That's important context, but it's also important to remember that that a smart deal in Game Pass, or what I can speak a little bit more authoritatively on, a smart deal getting a game in PS Now, or sorry, PS Plus, fronts a lot of forward capital to these smaller teams that might not even make as much money as they're being offered to get on Game Pass or get into PS Plus that they just make at market. Developers in a shrewd deal here make out really well. And it's important to remember the power that a service does hold for a larger context. I listen to Spotify on my phone for hours every day, right? And I listen to an unparalleled amount of music, and I have access to more different genres and experiences than I would ever have otherwise. The scope and scale it offers you, yes, it could undercut the individual importance of any specific title, but it enriches your ability to experience more of the industry.
Yeah.
And as long as teams continue to make smart deals with Microsoft and with Sony to get into their services, then nobody is really losing. Where we start to lose is when this becomes too ubiquitous that teams aren't getting as good of values. And then you get into, again, a Spotify situation where artists aren't getting as much money per stream, and then you start to get issues on that side. But I don't think that there's any way where you can view more things being added into Game Pass as being something that's going to dilute the overall experience to a point where it's a detriment, because I just don't think that's true.
For me, it's mostly not the fact that I'm not excited for it now, because having access to these games is going to be very cool for a lot of people. But mostly as I was trying to get at is that I'm curious about where this takes it in the future. As Microsoft keeps acquiring more studios and more deals like EA and Bethesda, essentially back to back with their catalogs being added to the Game Pass. It's an incredible deal now, but I do think that the possible of the dilution, especially for an indie game like, say, Spiritfarer, which was added to Game Pass, will get lost in the shuffle if it's surrounded by these gigantic acquisitions. And that's mostly what I'm thinking about. I don't think it's going to really be too much of a bad thing, but I do think it's something to keep in mind, that we are essentially getting to the point where I'll watch maybe 2 movies a month on Netflix, and all the stuff that they add just gets lost in the shuffle because there's just so much content.
I mean, the scope and scale of the amount of content you get is a problem, but I think it's important to remember that Spiritfarer probably didn't care if they got a good chunk of money from Xbox up front and they got their moment in a Nintendo Direct. You know, these things get their moment, and I don't think you can debate the fact that there's a lot of content that you've gotten exposure to and experienced solely because it was in a subscription service you got.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there's a lot of stuff that passes you by because there's a sensory overload, but there's a lot that you wouldn't have experienced otherwise that you got to play.
Yeah.
I know that that's definitely true for me. And then it's also important to remember about the scope of these acquisitions. Bethesda's acquisition, this is someone Alex Annual that Nibel retweeted, so these figures I know are correct. The acquisition price for Bethesda was 7.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Sony's operating profit between 2013 and 2019 was 8.8 billion. Not everybody can afford acquisitions on this scale. That's why that's part of the reason why this is such a big deal, because these things are not going to happen all the time. We're not going to see, I don't know, a Ubisoft and have their games be put under the Sony Studios umbrella, the PlayStation Studios umbrella. Things like that, things like this just don't happen often because there's physically not enough capital in a lot of these companies' coffers to actually facilitate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the smaller the two studios that do get these nice deals out of it, and I really think that only the consumer benefits.
Yep.
I don't think there's, and sure, you're going to have more content than you know what to do with, but I'd rather have that problem than be paying $70 per title on my PS5, as I will be doing when I finally get that machine.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the struggle of saying, oh shit, 5 games came to Game Pass this month. I have time to play 2 of them. I'd rather have that than be in a position where I'm paying so fucking much per game,
Yeah. And I think this is mostly comes down to me having internal conflict, me being a boomer when it comes to video games and wanting them physically and, not wanting DLC, not wanting digital. I've all those fronts. I'm clearly in the minority, but also the fact that I'm fighting myself because I don't like spending money. I don't buy a lot of games because I don't like spending money on a lot of games. And this Game Pass, though I'm not a huge fan of paying for subscriptions, although I do pay for quite a lot of them, is an objectively better deal. And I think I just need to change my mindset, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a personal preference thing, and they can exist in parallel. I mean, I love these services, but I also have my mic propped up on my GameCube, and I have my fucking N64 hooked up back home still, right? Both can still exist. And even in the same ecosystem, they can exist if you buy your Series X and, and you get your physical disc, then you supplement it with this. I do think it's pretty undeniable that this is the direction the industry will move on the whole. You only have to look at fucking every other entertainment medium to see that. I just think that Xbox is in a unique position where they have so much godforsaken fucking money that they can make it happen now instead of in a couple of years when it's going to happen more. So I just think that contrasting this Xbox ecosystem with what we saw from Sony, which is incredible games, but they're coming cross-gen, and they're really expensive, and there's all these other irons in the fire. To me, the Xbox ecosystem is where I'm investing in this fall. And I was hesitant about it, but now having EA Play, having Bethesda, having $25 a month in all access to get these, and my Series S, which I'm leaning towards, that's just undeniably compelling. And I saw someone tweet this morning. I wish I knew who it was. But they said that next generation is Xbox's generation to lose. And it's true. Because they are in such a fucking competitive position right now that it is on them to just execute. Just fucking execute.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Next generation is definitely going to be very interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens because a lot of this is just hard to predict because we never had situations like this happen before. So we'll see. Got anything else to say?
I just fucking want pre-orders to go well tomorrow. That's all I have to say. I just want pre-orders to go well. I don't want them to get fucked up. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
We'll
Microsoft.
see. We'll see.
Phil Spencer, I'll stop saying that you're a robotic lizard man in a human skeleton suit if you just let me pre-order your machine tomorrow. But shout out to Phil Spencer for real. He's a really fucking cool guy.
Yeah.
He's making moves. Phil Spencer's making moves. If I needed someone in my corner, it used to be Reggie, but now I don't know.
Ooh.
Phil Spencer is a fucking OG and a half.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed us talk about whatever the fuck happened this morning. We've been talking for 20 minutes. I still don't even know what's going on. But we will see you guys in another video.
Goodbye.
Microsoft bought Skyrim about Ruga.
Okay.